Hey, everybody, and welcome to the very first edition of Brent Ewing's Hey Buddy podcast. A podcast where we'll be talking sports, pro wrestling, music, television, movies, traveling, and everything in between. I'm going to be talking with friends, family, and hopefully some very special guests along the way. Anybody who knows me knows that baseball is my first love, so I couldn't think of a better topic to discuss on my first podcast than the game itself. My guest on this podcast is a friend of almost 30 years and someone who loves and appreciates the game of baseball almost as much as I do. So I hope you enjoy the first episode where I discuss all things baseball with my friend, Andy Parsons. Everything's looking good on your end?
Yeah. You look great.
Uh,
I mean, I wouldn't
good.
say you look great, but you look all right.
Oh, okay. I shoot for all right. That's good. Sorry, I
That's,
got a little. We finally get this podcast set up after trying to do it for what 3 weeks.
yeah, it's been a
My
minute.
my
You know,
internet, my landlord finally decided, hey, you're leaving in a week. Let me go ahead and get your internet fixed for you. So that's good. So he got that fixed yesterday. But now I got a cold, so I probably sound a little
oh,
bit
even better.
little bit nasally, so I'm sorry about that. But I'm glad we finally get to do this, talk a little bit of baseball, man. How's things going?
Things are good. Hey, let me adjust my camera here.
Yeah, go ahead. Don't adjust that thing too low, man.
Bounce.
I know you're not wearing pants.
Well, I just got out of the shower. I mean, I put in an 11-hour day.
Hey,
Um,
understand.
yeah. I might have to take a dad break to wipe a butt or two.
Hey, that's all right.
So
That's all right.
I'll let you know when that comes up.
You let me know, man. If you have to take a break for Bailey, a butt wiping break as well, you just let me know with that.
Well, Bailey's at work, luckily. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's just me and the Aubrey. Ain't that right, Aub?
Oh, that's funny. How's she doing?
She's all right.
Yeah,
She's 5 next week, believe it or not.
that's crazy, dude.
Not
That is
insane.
crazy.
And then we
Crazy
got
times, man.
coming in August.
Right? I've been here a year now, dude. I finished my contract here yesterday,
That's
and
insane.
I'm gonna stay for another week, and then I got some stuff planned. I'm gonna actually fly out on the 4th, and I'm going to hit up 5 or 6 ballparks on the way home, man. Catch the first week and a half of the season, so it's gonna be a blast. I'm gonna try to
You
do a little
lucky,
podcasting on that.
you lucky bastard, you.
So yeah, it should be a good time, man.
All right, well let's get down to business.
Let's get
Let's
it.
talk some baseball.
Let's get it, man. You want to start? You
No, you
throw.
go ahead. No, you go ahead. By all means, this is your
Well,
podcast, so hit me with something, bro.
oh, okay, man. Well, I mean, just kind of coming out. One of the first things, at the beginning of the year was kind of the Hall of Fame vote. What did you think of the Hall of Fame class of this year? Did you think?
Well, I mean, look, as the years go on, I've noticed that the Hall of Fame is becoming more and more of a joke to outside of baseball fans, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Simply because of the unanimous, you know, the unwritten rule, oh, nobody can be unanimous, and then suddenly there's a unanimous player. It's like,
Cor-
okay. So from a baseball fan, from my perspective, it kind of stings a little because you got other people who are not baseball fans. They kind of snicker and laugh at you, like,
mhm.
like, well, why is this guy, why does he get all the votes, but King Griffey Jr. doesn't get them, or Greg Maddux, or name any one of the other players who were just as deserving.
Exactly.
I'm not trying to take anything away from Derek Jeter. I'm not trying to Mario
Oh,
Mann or any of those guys.
you can take as much away from Jeter as you'd like, man. You know my
But
feeling. You know my feelings on that guy.
why did he have to get it?
Yeah,
Why wasn't it Junior? Why wasn't it Greg Maddux or Randy Johnson or any of those guys?
dude. If Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth,
Sure.
Ty Cobb, if those guys can't get
Yeah. I mean,
100% unanimous vote,
I was just trying to stay in my era. I mean,
sure.
you could make a gigantic. I mean, every player that's in it,
I
essentially.
agree.
I mean, there's a few that probably aren't deserving, but it's very frustrating. Do I think they earned it? Sure. Do I think Mario Vander's a great pitcher and would I want him to be a Red? Absolutely. Now, do I think the closer role is overrated? Yeah, just a little bit. We talked about that before.
Right.
But it's 50-50. I mean, you talk to some people some people are like, oh yeah, Derek Jeter's the greatest thing to ever walk the earth, et cetera, et cetera. Then you talk to, a non-baseball fan, they're like, I don't get it really. Why did he get it? Why didn't, they know all the other guys like Ken Griffey Jr. I know I keep talking about Jr., but he's the one that kind of really sticks out. And then you talk about the Roy guys, the the Roger Clemenses, the Barry Bondses, the Rafael Palmeiros, Mark McGuire's. If they would have just told the truth and said, hey, we're scumbags, we did what we did, maybe, just maybe, they would have probably got it in by now. I mean, I hate to say it. I know they cheated the game, but there's something about that lie. That's what's stinging everybody right now. It's not so much the steroids. I think it's just lying about it.
Right, I agree. What's your thoughts? I know you're obviously a huge Reds fan. What's your thoughts on the whole Pete thing? Does Pete deserve in the Hall of Fame? Don't take into account the guys that are in today who deserves it as far as on-field stuff. But do you have a problem with him not getting in based on what he did?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think he deserves to be in, but at the same time, it's his bed he made. It goes back to the lie aspect. If he had just come out and said, hey, I made a mistake, shouldn't have done this, would he have gotten in right away? Probably not. Would he have gotten in by now? I would say so, because you would have to be senile to think that Pete Rose isn't one of the greatest baseball players that ever walked this earth.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think that's never been in question. I think obviously his character has. Now, as I was saying before, you have, drug abusers, wife beaters, et cetera, et cetera. Now, they're not Hall of Fames. Sure, they're not, but they're still in baseball.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what stings Pete the most, that he doesn't even have a chance. So, again, it comes back to just don't lie.
I agree. And being from where we're from, that close to Cincinnati, you hear Reds fans and you hear overall baseball fans talk about it. Oh, put Pete in the Hall of Fame, put Pete in the Hall of Fame. And I always kind of get up on that soapbox of, is he a Hall of Famer based on what he did on the field? 100%. But, there's that one rule in every clubhouse. Hey, man, you can't bet on the game. And he bet on the game. And I know he came out and said he never bet. What was it? He never bet on the Reds or against the Reds. Well, then that's a bad gambler then.
Yeah,
there's got to be times where you're facing the ace and you're like, we're going to lose, man. I'm going to put some money down on the other team. So he's either along with a terrible liar, he's a terrible gambler.
He probably didn't do so well in that stretch.
Right, man, right. Well, going back to this year's Hall of Fame class, just to go over it again, it was Mario Rivera, Edgar Martinez, Roy Halladay, and Mike Mussina. Those were kind of the four major guys this year. And I think Halladay, he didn't play as long as I would have liked to have seen, but man, he was 203 and 105 with just a ridiculous ERA. I mean, the guy was.
See, I wins and losses to me mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before, and I agree to an extent.
That's a cute stat, just like the save. It's real cute and all. But, I mean, ERA is everything.
Exactly.
Whip, strike. I mean, I guess you could say strikeouts. Even though strikeouts, I think, is also inflated. I mean, you look at pictures like Greg Maddux, who didn't really strike a lot of guys out. To me, Hall of Fame means if you played like 10 years and you were the best there was for 10 straight years, that's Hall of Fame worthy to me. You don't have to, these inflated numbers and all this and that. Sure, I get it. Roy Halladay was probably the best there was in the game for like maybe 6 to 7, maybe 8 years.
I agree, man. He was so fun to watch.
And that says a lot, I mean, the way the offense got better. I mean, even in the steroid, I mean, he pitched briefly in the steroid era, I want to say.
Absolutely.
He was a stud, man. So to me, the Martinez one is one that I have a little bit of problem with, not so much because he doesn't deserve it, but it's the whole DH thing. I mean,
I agree.
You play half the game. I mean, it is what it is. So.
Right. I agree 100%. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer necessarily, and Mike Mussina is kind of on the fence for me. I mean, he had 270 wins, but my gosh, he pitched for some really, really good Yankee teams, and he pitched a long time. He started 536 odd games. It's like you're going to rack up some
consistency.
wins.
I mean, you know what you were getting from Mike Mussina.
Right.
He was anywhere from an ace to at worst, a solid 6 innings.
Right.
I mean, he's just very consistent, and I think the voters now take a lot of that into consideration. I mean, I don't want to say it's watered down, the Hall of Good, as you like to call it, but
right.
it's kind of becoming that now. I mean, it's you take the. I mean, there's like a gap. I mean, there's the Hall of Famers, and then there's the Hall of Famers. If that makes any sense, to me anyway.
Sure.
But
sure.
Would I want Mike be seen on the Reds? 100%.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. All right, man. You got a couple crazy contracts. Since we first started talking about this podcast, there's been 3 huge contract signings. Obviously, Bryce Harper signing the 13-year, $330 million, deal. Machado, 10 years, $300 million. And then recently Mike Trout signing the 12-year extension for $430 million. Yeah, man. Give me your thoughts on those 3 guys. And obviously nobody deserves that type of money, but in this game where money's just thrown around, easily.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is what the game's become. This is what pro sports has become in general. It's not just baseball. I mean, yeah, baseball has the highest contracts, but I mean, you got NFL quarterbacks making $25 million a year. Now, are they deserving of that? I mean, if Ted Williams played today, would he get a solid billion? I mean,
right.
I just don't, I mean, you just have to adjust it for inflation, I guess. I mean, if teams want to put the money up for it and they want to pay these players that, more power to them, I guess. That's just the way that the game's become. I don't know if salary cap would be a good thing in baseball. I mean, would you think it'd be a good thing in baseball? I mean, it would be so.
I actually did a paper on that back in college, back 17, 18 years ago.
Wow.
I mean, I know, right? I always thought there should be a salary cap, but with the way it is, the players it would be something they would never agree to now because it's gotten so out of control,
Sure.
So outrageous. Everybody wants more and more and more. There's just no way they could ever put a cap on it.
There was certainly a point of no return. I mean,
Right.
Contracts didn't get super inflated and probably until about the mid to late 90s.
Correct.
That's when it kind of got out of hand. So I think, they had a chance up until then. The whole strike season, that was kind of a black eye for baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Lost a lot of fans then too. But I mean, this is the nature of the beast, man. I mean, it's only going to get worse. Now, what I do think was good, they didn't get signed right away. Bryce Harper, a month before the season started, didn't get signed, or however many, 3 weeks. So that kind of tells you, these GMs and these owners, they were pretty hesitant at first. But ultimately they did cave, so I guess it doesn't matter. But at the same time, that counts for something. They did just bow down and say, here you go, here's your, $300+ million, face of the franchise, keys to the city, it's yours.
Right.
But I just think it's just going to get worse before it gets better. You're just going to see higher and higher. I mean, you're going to see, the Jeff Blausers of the world making $20 million a year.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, Tyler Chatwood. Look at Tyler Chatwood's contract with the Cubs, and that just I can't. I don't even have any words for that. It's unreal. It's unreal.
Just nature of the beast, man. I can't explain it. It's just the way it is.
What did you think of Harper signing with the Phillies? If you would have asked me, and I told you this a year ago, I said, dude, there's no way Harper is not a Cub. 100%, he's going to be a Cub next year. And then they threw all that money at Darvish. They threw all that money at Chatwood. They couldn't unload that crazy Hayward contract, and now they just gave Kyle Hendricks, who Hendricks is solid, but he's a number 3 at best. They just threw him $55 million bucks. I thought for sure Harper would be in Chicago. What did you think when he signed with?
I'll throw in something with Hendricks. I think he's a great pitcher. I don't think he's flashy. I don't think he has the ace stuff or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But he's a pitcher's pitcher. He's my kind of guy. That's the kind of pitcher I want. The guys who can, throw a changeup on a 3-0 count and get a guy out.
Right.
Again, not flashy, doesn't throw super hard. But do you have to these days? But the Cubs, they're just up and down. They've made some really great, amazing moves, and then you head scratchers with the whole Tyler Chatwood, Jason Haywood, which to me I think was the worst one of the bunch. I mean, at least the 2 pitchers, you take a gamble, you never know. But Haywood everybody kind of knew what kind of player he was. So I'm not sure why they threw that kind of cash out there. No disrespect to Jason Haywood. I think he was a solid player. I just don't think he was worth all that money. That's a lot of cash.
I agree.
They could have picked up much. I mean, look at the back of his baseball card. You could have got a much cheaper guy to have those kind of numbers. Again, not taking anything away from the guy. He earned it. It is what it is. But I think that's a head scratcher for sure. Now, again, the pitchers, you take a gamble. I mean, they could have a Jake Arrieta year, or they could have a Luis Castillo last year with a setback. It's just, you just never know with those pitchers. So I understand gambling in that aspect of it.
Right, right. Yeah, good way to put it. Let's talk a little bit. Obviously, I'm a Cubs fan. You're a Reds fan. We'll start first with your guys, the Reds. And I feel, man, they really made some good moves. I really like the signing of Puig and putting him in that, bandbox of a ballpark. I think he can hit 35 to 40 there if he stays healthy. I think he's going to be fun in that park. I think the fans are going to love him. I like the Alex Wood pickup. I think I think that's a good pickup. The Matt Kemp deal, I don't know how that's going to work, if he's going to play, every third day. I honestly thought he would probably be traded before the season started, but they kept him on the roster. And, he's still Matt Kemp. He still can hit, and he still brings some stuff to the game. Is he an everyday player right now in Cincinnati? I don't think so. But also Iglesias, with Jeanette getting hurt. The Iglesias kid playing short. I don't know if it's going to be him playing short or Peraza, but one of the two at shortstop and the other at second base. They're going to be a solid team, man, especially when Scooter comes back.
Yeah, the Scooter thing hurt. I'm not going to lie. I mean, he was the biggest surprise. I mean, you pick up a guy a day before the season starts, and then he turns into an all-star. I mean, you can't write a better script than that. So it stings. We're gonna miss that bat, sure, but like as you said, we've picked up so many key weapons. I mean, Puig. I mean, I hate to keep reference this, but you're only as good as the back of your baseball card, and the guy puts up numbers. The same with Matt Kemp. I mean, people want to dog him for what he is, but yeah, he gets hurt, but the guy drives in 100 runs every year. I want that on my team. Joey Votto never drove in 100 runs last year. So I mean, it's exciting to me because this is the first year that Reds fans can say that they're trying. 5-6 years ago, we can't really say that they're trying. You throw some of these names out there, and you're kind of like, who is this guy? Not to steal it from the Indians. Who the F is this guy? But it feels good. It feels good to be a Reds fan right now.
I bet
we haven't really had a chance to say that the last since our 2012 season, 2013 season. So. Right. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Now, health is everything, of course. I mean, anything can happen. Alex Wood is going to start the season on the DL.
Right.
Will that matter towards the end? I don't know, but I think if the pitching core stays healthy and they get 7 to 6.5 innings per those starters, I think we're going to be fine because we got a pretty solid pen.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing that's.
I will say one more thing. Raisel Iglesias should be a starter. I mean, he's rotting in the bullpen.
Oh, I agree. I think
he should be throwing every 4 days. I mean, you want your best pitcher to throw 200 innings, not 74 or 75, whatever. Right. So,
I agree. What do you think about with Puig being behind Votto now? You think Votto will have kind of a bounce back year and get that average back up over 300?
Man, Votto, he's such a mystery. I've never seen a guy be lights out MVP to, the season. I'm not saying he didn't he had a great season last year. He still hit pretty, respectable numbers. Now, was a regression, yeah, but the guy is 35 years old. I don't know if you could put anybody behind Joey Votto, and I don't think his approach is going to change. I don't think his hitting style is going to change. I think he is what he is. Mm-hmm. He's going to choke up on that bat. He's going to be the toughest out in baseball. Whether that's going to be hitting for power, whether that's going to be, looping singles into right field. I think he's up there to make a tough out. And mm-hmm. He is. He's a tough out.
I agree. He's very frustrating as an opponent, man. You see him come up, he can take 2 just terrible swings, and then he's going to, get the count to 3-2, and then he's going to foul 4 or 5 pitches off, and then he's going to loop a ball over the third baseman's head.
He's great to watch sometimes. I mean, he can be frustrating, but mm-hmm. I think he's one of the toughest outs in baseball.
I agree.
Can I pause you here? I got to do a dad thing real quick.
Hey, absolutely, bro.
Just give me like 35 seconds. I'll be right back.
Absolutely, man. And we're back.
Yeah, you go from talking to the greatest game of all time to wiping butts, man. It is what it is.
Hey, man, that's good. Good for you for being the dad in this situation, man. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about my guys, my Cubbies, and you know how frustrated I am with them after talking to you. I mean, they did absolutely nothing as far as.
You talk about being confident. I mean, I don't know if Theo said, "Hey, this is my core. I'm going with it." They could have done a little bit, I guess, but I think you hit the nail on the head with those contracts. With the Chatwood money and the Darvish money, and they're still hurting from Haywood. There's only so much they could have done. Now, they could have set up a big trade, I'm sure, but Theo, I'm not going to question Theo because the man put a World Series team on the field, and it is what it is.
I agree. They're kind of strapped right now in the farm system, so they got to play with what they got, and not picking up any big names. I was especially hoping for a pitcher. I mean, they need pitching,
Sure.
especially the end of the rotation. Craig Kimbrell's still out there, unsigned, and I get he's going to come with a hefty price tag, but the Cubs bullpen right now is Pedro Strop is hurt. He tweaked a hammy a couple weeks ago. He might be ready for the beginning of the season.
Well, he's a great situational left-hander. I mean, he is what he is.
Yeah, right. Brandon Morrow, their closer, is out. He's going to be out for, I don't know, up until May probably.
Yeah,
So
it's a few months, right? Yeah.
yeah, you got to have somebody to close games up. Why not go out and throw even if it's just to get Kimbrel for a year, throw a bunch of money at him for a year, man.
Sure.
They got to have something in that bullpen to close games. They got Carl Edwards. He's unreliable. They got a couple new faces, but they let Jesse Chavez go, who came in last year and pitched really well. I'm worried. I'm worried about the starters. Lester's getting older. His velocity seems to be down the last few years. Darvish coming off an injury. We don't know what we're getting there. Carlos Quintana's kind of up and down. He's a 12 to 15 win guy, but I don't know, man. Hopefully Hendricks can bounce back and have the season he did a few years ago, the World Series year in 16.
I think he's going to have a great year. I think he's going to figure it out. What's that old saying? You can't win the pennant in April, but you sure can lose it. So that might be the case for the Cubs this year. They might get to dig themselves a hole, but you never say never. Like I said, with that kind of team, that kind of offense, you guys are going to be fine. I think if you just stay right around 500, maybe a little bit over, I think you're going to be fine.
I'm scared to death of the Cardinals, man. They got Andrew Miller and Paul Goldschmidt, dude. That's two huge additions. I mean, Goldschmidt might be the most underrated, maybe not underrated, but the most overlooked player in the game. The dude's
He's
phenomenal.
Probably my second best player behind Mike Trout.
Yeah.
Just because he can do it all. He can run, he can throw, he can hit. But you're right. It just seems like nobody talks about Paul Goldschmidt like they used to. You ask anybody in Arizona, sure, everybody knows Paul Goldschmidt. You ask somebody in, upstate New York, who? It's like Paul Goldschmidt should be, everybody should know that name. Come here, Rob. Let's say hi to Brent.
Hey.
She's like, no.
she wants none of it.
But yeah, picking up Goldie, picking up Andrew Miller, which David Ross has something to say about that. But
right. I just watched a replay of that the other day, man. That's one of my favorite memories of all time. Oh man, I miss Rossi. I miss that guy on the
I feel
club.
so good for that guy because he had that one solid half season with the Reds that was just amazing, and then just the wheels fell off for the guy.
Right.
Oh, there's your tattoos. And then for him to come in and hit that home run, that was just, man, felt so good for that guy.
And I definitely recommend his book. If you like to read, man, that book is his book he put out 2 years ago is phenomenal. It's a fun read.
I did. I read Lenny Dykstra's, and that was a good read. You were
right. Yeah, that was a little
some
different.
of those stories, man. The Kevin McReynolds story I thought was great. How he's hunting and all that stuff. That was funny.
Right. Well, all right, man. Kind of moving on a little bit. I'm just gonna give you stats of a guy. I know you're not a huge stat guy. You're like whatever. But I'm gonna give you stats, and you tell me if this guy's a Hall of Fame player or not. And then I'll give you a couple guesses as to who it is. Okay?
Sure.
All right, man. So the guy racked up 2,340 hits. He had a 279 batting average, 439 home runs with 1,412 RBI, had a 354 on base and a 486 slugging percentage, was an All-Star 6 times and 1-time World Series champ. Now, is that Hall of Fame numbers to you? Because to me, that's some pretty daggone good numbers.
That's pretty good. I think that's, I guess it depends on the era. I mean, is this the steroid era? Is this, this 1,400 RBIs? That's huge. It's tough to drive in 1,400 runs. I don't care who you are. I would have to say eventually that's Hall of Fame worthy. Eventually, I don't know, coming out of the gate, first ballot, maybe not, but I could see that player getting in.
Yeah, this is in the 2000s. This guy was actually a Red for a short period of time.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Maybe Jim Edmonds.
No, not Edmonds. Good guess though. Edmonds had a solid career. To me, the best defensive center fielder I've ever seen is Jim Edmonds.
Yeah, he was insane.
The catches that guy made were
Well,
unbelievable.
it wasn't so much the catches. The guy never. I mean, he caught everything. He caught
Hmm.
every ball, humanly possible that was near him.
Right, right.
This is a good question. I'm pretty good at this kind of stuff. Played with the Reds briefly.
He played with the Reds briefly. He played with the Dodgers. Played for a few different teams in his career. Ended his career with the White Sox, I believe.
Is this Paul Konerko?
Paul Konerko.
Okay.
I feel the last 20 years he might be top 2 or 3 most underrated players in the game. The guy just hit. He just hit. You know,
I can see that.
He came through 100 RBI seasons, 30 home run seasons. I mean, a 279 average for a power hitter. You know, that's
it's obviously a guy that wasn't on the juice either. I mean, he was hurt quite often, if I'm not mistaken.
right.
Well, not quite often, but more so than he should have probably. But yeah, I think I can see him getting in the Hall. I really could. I think, obviously you ask any White Sox fan, absolutely. But the 1,400 runs batted in and the almost 500 home run was a 442, something of that nature.
439, yeah.
439. So I mean, that's getting it done, man. And I could see it. I wouldn't be upset if he got in.
I'm with you. I don't know necessarily if it's a first ballot.
No,
but
I don't think it's first ballot.
But myself, I thought Vlad Guerrero should have been a first ballot. Looking at his numbers, and he was the player he was just unbelievable. For him not to be a first ballot Hall of Famer just boggles my mind.
Well, that goes back to what I said before is, I'm not a huge stat guy, but if you're the best in the game for extended periods of time, not just 1 or 2 or 3, I'm talking like 4 to 8 years, which he was, how's that not Hall of Fame worthy? I just don't get it.
I agree.
If Vlad Guerrero could literally do everything. He was the Willie Mays of our era.
Right. How fun was he to watch? What do you think about his son coming up, man? Have you seen highlights of Vlad Jr.?
There's definitely a hype there. I mean, if I recently joined a fantasy draft and he's going so high, it's like they're picking him over some stars, some well-known stars. So I mean, the hype is real. I mean, I wish nothing but the best for the kid because his dad. I tell you what, his dad made me want to play baseball. I mean, he was just a hell of a player. Some of those throws in right field and some of those swings. I mean, he would swing at some of the worst pitches. I would always tell people never watch Vlad hit because he swings at everything, but he hit it.
He hit everything.
I mean, the guy hit it.
He was like Clemente, man, with his arm and his bat. He really was.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at Vlad Jr. I'm a little bit concerned with his. He's got a weird build, man. He's so he's so thick that I'm like,
he's stocky boy, that's for sure.
I can see this guy pulling some hammies. That's
right.
That's one thing that concerns me, and maybe not. Hopefully not, because I like the kid. I think him and Bo Bichette and Fernando Tatis Jr. There's a lot of a crop of young guys coming up.
The kid from Washington, who I'm not a huge fan of because of his attitude, but he can play. Forget his name off the top of my head. Huge kid, just a big, like an Albert Pujols, type body.
Is it Henniger?
I can't think of his name.
I can't. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank right now.
He had some attitude issues we talked about last year. I can't really think of his name off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
I know he played for the Nationals.
I'm trying to think, man. Oh, for the guy for the Nationals. I thought you said for the Mariners.
No.
Oh, for the Nationals, Soto. Juan Soto?
There you go.
Yeah. I think Juan Soto. Go ahead.
That kind of build, that's the kind of, I mean, that's like the thing now. These athletes, I mean, you're not going to see any more Pete Roses, Dustin Pedroias. I just think that kind of, I mean, they're few and far between now. And Mookie Betts, I mean, he's pretty slim, pretty thin. Great player, fun to watch too. I mean, that guy.
Super player, yeah.
Just full of energy, just fun to watch. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I like about baseball. You don't have to be a fan of the team to appreciate that kind of talent. Mike Trout, obviously my favorite player right now, and for good reason. Just all around solid dude. He does everything. He can run, throw, can hit. Just a great dude. Just a great player.
Absolutely, and that's why when he signed that big deal, it's like you felt the Angels had to do that. They had to keep him around. But they got to build around him, man. Giving him that much money, keeping him there, that's great for him, great for his bank account, but the kid wants to win. It's like you got to get some pieces around him. Pujols' days are over. Otani, is he ever going to come back to what he was as far as a pitcher? Is he going to be able to fill that DH role? They got to get some more pieces in there around him to
You
really
know
get
what?
the Angels into contention.
They had some great teams right there in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and what was good those years were, I mean, they had just solid pitching. They were just so
Right,
everybody wasn't an ace, but for the most part, they were just all good.
right. I
And they
agree.
had a pretty good bullpen too. I think Troy Percival and a couple other key pieces back there. And their offense wasn't the greatest. I mean, I remember Scott Spezio, Mr. Clutch coming through with that little good, crazy goatee.
Yeah, what was that about?
David Eckstein, that was, how did that guy play baseball?
Man, I watch
Most
Eckstein.
awkward.
He frustrates me so much because I'm like, this guy's in the pros. I'm like, I know I could do that. Like, how's this guy doing what he's doing,
It's the same
getting
with
paid
Herb.
what he's paid?
He's got that weird motion. It's like, how's this guy a major league player? But then you look at the back of the baseball card and like, well, who am I to say?
Exactly. Exactly. I understand that completely, man.
It's like Jeff Blauser is a baseball player. How in the world is that?
Jeff Blauser's your go-to, huh? That's kind of your guy.
You know
It's
why?
almost Jeff
Because
Blauser.
I remember vividly being at the game. Jeff Blauser hit the go-ahead home run, and it still stings. Like I was
Right.
just so disappointed. I was there with Richie Kaiser, who was a huge Braves fan. He threw kind of rubbing it in my face. The Braves won, blah blah blah. To this day, I've never forgiven Jeff Blauser.
What was that, like 93, 94, something
It
like
had to have
that?
been early '90s, mid '90s, maybe. The Braves were awesome then, so who knows?
Was Limke on that team?
I think he was. Yep.
Lim,
There's another.
that
There's
was
another one right there. Mark Lynn. How in the world is that guy a pro? Like,
Man, I don't. Him and Otis Nixon. Remember Otis Nixon from those early
us.
Braves teams? My gosh, that was my guy on RBI baseball, though. If you remember RBI baseball, man, I loved Otis Nixon.
Otis.
That dude
You know
could
what?
steal.
Otis could ball. My two
Oh,
favorite Braves, though, if I had to pick, I know we're getting kind of off topic. Obviously, Hank Aaron and Del Murphy. Everybody forgets about Del Murphy. How awesome was Del Murphy?
how's Dale Murphy not a Hall of Famer?
That's another guy who, for maybe 3 or 4 years was the greatest in the game. I mean,
Yep.
he was just so good. 2 MVP. Did he win MVP back to back? I think it was 81, 82. I don't know.
I, I think he did, and I think he needed like 2 or 3 more home runs for 400 in his career.
It's
It's
just
like,
so
dude,
good.
you can't stick around and hit a couple more home runs, get that 400 mark. Because I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, and heck, he even played into the 90s. I think he played what 20 some odd years.
It's been a
And
while. Yeah, he
he was
played.
up there.
He's just a name that gets forgotten in the mix sometimes, and I think he's like a 4 to 5 year stretch. He was the best in the game.
I agree. I agree. Some guys just fade away like that. It was kind of like that for me with, and this is totally off topic. We're talking about basketball for a second, but like Allen Iverson, that guy he was the man. He was the best in the game, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. It was just like he wasn't there anymore. It's
You know,
amazing how some of these
Basketball's weird though. I
guys.
think a lot of that was the position that he played too. Point guard is it was kind of like a dying. It was a dying breed then, and now it's come full circle. With the Steph Currys of the world, Allen Iverson's game nowadays would be, you know, just live at the 3-point line. But you're right though; he just kind of faded into obscurity.
It's funny how some guys that happens more so I guess in football than any other sport because their careers are so short. You have that
Right?
one good year, next thing you know, you tear an
Absolutely.
ACL and your career's over. But back to the game, baseball. That's
There.
where it's at. We'll save that other talk for another time. But
Michael Jordan's retired, so the NBA's ever for me. So
exactly,
sorry, sorry,
have
fans.
I have a coworker here at Maui Memorial that man, he dogs me all the time. I talk about how good Jordan was, and he's all about LeBron and James Harden and those guys, and it's
Just tell him one word. All you got to hit him with one word:
yeah,
defense.
defense
Defense.
exactly.
They played
There's no-
defense back then. He had to play against the '89 Pistons.
I know, right?
Good luck with that. Good luck,
Ex-
LeBron, playing against the '89 Pistons.
Right? No kidding. No kidding. All right, man. Well, let's come back to some baseball. Give me some predictions. What do you think? Give me your 3 teams, your 3 division winners in the AL, your 3 division winners in the NL. We don't have to talk about wild card because the wild card stuff still bugs me. I don't get that. But give me your three winners in each league. What do you think?
I think the Central. I think the Cardinals are going to take it. I hate to say it because I can't stand the sons of bitches, but it seems like year in year out they put in a great product and they get the best out of players you never would expect. They flip players good too. I forget the guy they traded to Boston. Had an amazing season. Traded to Boston. The guy's in the minor leagues now. I mean, it's just like they have the best luck with trades and the best luck with getting the best out of nothing. Out of the East, boy, that's tough. I have to go with the Phillies. I mean, they're a pretty damn good team on paper.
Hmm.
Um, I think their 3-hole hitter from 2 years ago is now hitting 7th, if that says anything.
Wow.
So, I think his name's Markel something, or
Yeah, Mikel Franco maybe.
maybe. Anyway, he was a 3 hitter a few years back, and now you look at that offense. It's like they picked up the catcher from the Marlins. They get
Yeah, man, Real Muto, and
that's
they got
that's
Reese
gonna be
Hoskins.
tough offense, and their pitching's not bad. With Aaron Nola, Jake Arrieta, that's that's going to be a tough team to beat in the playoffs should they make it there, which I think
solid rotation.
I think they're going to make. In the West, how can you not pick the Dodgers? It's always the Dodgers or the Giants. I got to go with LA simply because of Clayton Kershaw. I think he's going to get healthy. They're going to ride that pony, and
Right.
I think the Dodgers are going to pull it out. Now, I always root for the Padres just because they're the small ball team.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't sign Manny Machado, so now I can't really root for him because I'm not a big Machado guy. So
Not me either. He rubs me the wrong way. Him talking about, hey, if you want a guy who gives 100% and runs out every ground ball, I'm not your guy. That right there just turned me off of him.
it's
He
pretty.
came out and said
Could you
that.
ever hear Pete Rose saying that, or Mickey Mantle, or
No, man.
any one of those guys? Hank
These
Aaron.
guys,
You ever hear those guys saying that?
those guys back then played for a contract. Each year they played for the next year's contract, and now these guys they get lazy, they get fat and happy, they get that deal. I'm making my money. What do I got to hustle for?
Sure.
And that's just sad.
I hate to say it, but Junior was the same way. Junior never ran out a lot of balls.
He's one of the, and I know he's your boy, and I was never, even coming up, 89, oh man, I got to get the Griffey Jr. rookie card. That's
I think everybody had one, right?
Upper deck rookie. That was the big thing. But even back then, I was like, man,
I was just saying.
Right. I was just never a Griffey fan. I don't know what it was. Just I respected his game, but especially when he came to Cincinnati, the last few years when he was lazy, man. He was Fred McGriff lazy. If you remember how lazy Fred McGriff was when he was
crazy too, because Fred McGriff was pretty good, So imagine how good he could have been. Sorry, that was my wife calling.
Okay.
But I think Griffey was the first player where the hype kind of sat in, and that's kind of what turned a lot of people off. Like, oh my gosh, this guy's the next so and so, which they were half right, up until he got the injuries and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That can turn a lot of players and a lot of fans off. All this hype and all this and that. With the Harper was the same way.
Sure.
I get it, but Griffey was like the first one that I can remember. Like, oh my gosh, the whispers. You got to watch this guy play baseball, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's where it kind of rubbed fans the wrong way. Like, yeah, who's this? Everybody keeps talking about this guy. He's not better than my player. He's not better than this guy. He's not, and he had to earn it, earn that respect, earn that name. And to me, he was the best player in the 90s. I mean,
yeah, I think I would have to agree with that. Him and Bonds, up until Bonds, started doing what he did. But I think too, when he came out in '89, Sports Center, things like that were just kind of getting big. We didn't have 3, 4, 5 ESPN channels. We didn't have MLB Network. Heck, we were still in school, so we weren't getting to see the late West Coast games.
Sure.
So we kind of just knew the Reds, the Cubs, the Braves, the Yankees, the guys on the East Coast and the Midwest. And I knew of the A's because I was a huge Canseco fan.
Sure.
My dad would record Baseball Tonight for me. He would leave me little sticky notes in the morning. Hey, Canseco homered, A's won 5-3. Eckersley got the save. I still have a ton of those notes back at the house, man.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
He would leave me notes of Reds won. Like he would just write out every score. But there were mornings where he would wake me up in the summer, 5:30. Hey, let's watch Baseball Tonight. And then I'd go back to sleep. But now you got MLB Network, and you can watch anybody from anywhere. You're getting games from Japan.
Well,
you're getting
these changed everything too. I mean,
right.
having a portable computer with you at all times, that changed the game. But like you said, the the late '80s, early '90s, it was kind of like word of mouth. It was, hey, so and so, did you hear about this guy? Yada yada yada. And I think that was kind of cool. But like I said before, they kind of had to earn it. You hear all this stuff about a guy. Is he really that good? Is he really that great? I'll be the judge of that. And then, Ken Griffey Jr., say what you want about his laziness, but he was probably the best player in the 90s. So
I agree.
It's hard to dog Jr. But you know what? You're right though. He did get lazy. He did. I mean, Marty Brennaman called him out. He did run balls.
Right. Marty doesn't bite his tongue, man. That's
just mess around. That's why we like Marty in Cincinnati. We're gonna miss him. This is his last year, so.
I know, man. Even as a Cubs guy, growing up, I heard hundreds of Marty games on the radio, and I'm gonna miss him. I tried over here like crazy last year.
He loves Cubs fans. Let me tell you, I'm sure.
Oh man, yeah, there's some, I don't know if it's bitterness. I don't know what's going on there, but he's definitely not a fan. I think it's because we fill your stadium, man. You guys have been so bad for so long that Cubs fans just
Right.
take over, and
It
and
stings a little. I'm not gonna lie. It's tough seeing
yeah,
all that Cub blue. Hell, when we went a few years back, it was that way. So
right. Okay, man. Well, let's go with my predictions for the NL. I'm gonna go with the in the West. I'm gonna say the Dodgers as well. I think uh, they're just too good. And they added AJ Pollock. Like, come on. With that
right.
outfield, yeah, they lost Puig, but they got Bellinger, they got Pollock. If Peterson can, live up to the hype he came in with, plus they got
He just needs to hit for average. I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to butt in, but
no, no.
if he just puts him some average, I
I
think he's
agree.
good. He's gonna have the power. Just get on
Right,
base, man. Get a single here and there.
right. That's true, man. And I'm gonna go with in the East. I'm gonna go with the Braves. I think the Braves are gonna edge out the Phillies. Um, I,
That is
I
a
don't
hot pick.
I don't know why necessarily because the Phillies lineup is so good, but I really like these young Braves, and that kind of hurts me to say because I'm not a Braves fan.
I know,
But
right?
man,
It just gives that weird taste in your mouth.
this Acuna kid is just
I mean, we grew up
he,
in the '90s. So, I mean, the Braves is all we knew, really, right? Yeah.
yeah, you just can't. I couldn't like the Braves then. Don't get me started on those pitchers getting 6 inches outside. I'll get on a soapbox with that exactly. And the Central man, I just because I'm a homer in this situation, I got to say the Cubs bounce back. I got to say they bounce back this year. I got to say Bryant's healthy. I got to
Can
say
we, can
Darvish is
we
healthy.
rewind the podcast to where you said the Cubs did nothing and you're worried about all? No,
I
I'm
know,
kidding.
right?
I'm kidding.
It's kind of contradicting myself, but they did nothing, but they still kind of have those pieces if they stay healthy. I think some of the guys just underperformed last year. I
They
think
did.
Hendricks
They
I
did have
think
it. They
Hendricks
did.
underperformed.
They
I
took a
think
step
Les
back.
I think Lester was hurt some of the season. I think Schwarber really will kick it in gear this year. They just sent Ian Happ down to the minors. The kid, I think he's only 24, but I think he's got a bright future. But he's got to start hitting. He strikes out too much. I think he can come around, but they got this David Bodie kid that I think could relieve Bryant at third. Maybe let Bryant play the outfield, or Bodie could go to second. I don't know what they're going to do with Addison Russell. I wouldn't be upset if they just quietly released him or tried to trade him. The whole stuff with the domestic violence issue.
He had some baggage, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's a spot for him anymore. Now, early last year, before DeGrom was what DeGrom was, I was hoping.
What a season.
I was like, man, throw a trade together. This was before he really kicked it in gear. I was like, throw a trade together with Schwarber and Russell for DeGrom. Like, I was all for that. And then DeGrom just took off and kept getting better and better, and his season just was unbelievable.
Then it's like add on this, add on that, and then eventually you're like, well, we're gonna be in the negative trying to get this guy. So
Exactly. But the whole Russell thing, I think he's lost out to Baez. Baez has to be an everyday player. He might be the
I love the
he
way
might
that guy plays.
right. He might be the most fun guy to watch in the National League. He's always happy. He's always smiling. He's always into it. He's got a good attitude. The kid just loves to play ball, and you can see that. He's kind of got that Jose Altuve deal where they're just always upbeat. They're always having a good time.
Let's not forget about your first baseman Rizzo. I think he's going to have another great year.
I hope so.
I think he's one of those guys who can potentially hit 330, drive in 100. Can he put it all together? I think he needs to take a step back off the plate just a little bit. He loves to get up on that plate.
He does.
Pitchers bust him inside. I think he loses probably maybe 20 points of average because of that. But, what do I know? I never played Major League Baseball.
He had such a slow start last year that it took him forever to climb out of that hole. But he ended up having a pretty decent season.
He did.
And I like Almora in center. I think he's got to be an everyday player. They got Zobrist, who,
The ageless wonder.
right? I don't think he's an everyday player now, but I think he can be a second baseman. He can be a left fielder. He can be a right fielder.
He's valuable in that sense where you can plug and play him, and you're not going to sacrifice. You're not going to, the defense isn't going to be shoddy. It's going to be just as good if you had anybody else out there.
Exactly.
That's what's so great about today's players like that, like Ben Zobrist. They're so valuable.
Right. He's steady. You know what you're getting.
He's a tough out. He's a tough out to play.
Very tough out. I mean, probably the biggest hit in Cubs history now with, against the Indians there, man. And It's
Huge.
I just got chills talking about that. I don't understand the
Triple check.
pickup of right. I don't understand the pickup of Daniel Descalso. I don't get that. I know they let Daniel Murphy go. I was hoping that they would re-sign Murph. I think he was, I think he could have offered them maybe not great defense, but I think he was a good pop in the middle of the order. But Descalso's already hurt. The kid's a career maybe 240, 250 hitter. I don't think he really offers a whole lot. Maybe they're just bringing him in to have a veteran piece, that can
It could be. It might
fill
be a
in.
money thing too. Like I said,
He was cheap. He came cheap.
It's hard to question Theo. Like I said, he put that product on the field. Within. I forget that text you sent me a while back, but it was like this was the Cubs starting 9. 2013, and then you look at this Cubs starting 9, 2016. It's like, holy crap, this happened in 3 years. So
isn't that crazy? I think there was a Ryan Kalish sighting in that 2013. There was Emilio Bonifacio was in there.
I was going to say Emilio. He was the only. I think he was the most recognizable Cub at the time.
Man, that was sad times.
Starling Castro, I think he had like a 200 hit season.
I think Castro just. That kid started off. Remember that first game he played against the Reds, and he had, I think, 6 RBI. He just started out like a man on fire, and then he just kind of came down to earth,
Well, you got to remember he was hitting against the Reds, and
true. I might be able to get a couple hits there.
Our awesome pitching that we had, I'm sure.
Okay, man. Let's go to the AL. What do you think as far as the?
Well, it's the whole Yankees and the Red Sox stuff. I mean, it's hard not to pick any one of those two. I could see anybody picking. I think the Sox are a 5-1 favorite to win it. So I mean, they're loaded. I mean, if they play the way they did last year, a season ago, they're going to just wreck everybody again. I mean, that was one of the best single seasons I think I've ever witnessed. Ever. I mean, I lived through the 1990 Reds, and they weren't even close to that kind of caliber of a team. For the West, the West's tough because I don't know a whole lot about them, but I'm going to have to say I think Seattle's going to make some noise. I really do. I just there's something about them. They got younger, which is good, but they got better, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Central, man, how can you not pick the Indians? I mean, they're just one of those teams that just. I mean, Kansas City was a feel-good story, but they I think they're in a rebuild now. I have to go with the Indians. I think they're solid. I think they're pitching. First of all, Clevenger. What's his name? Kluber and Bauer. I think those three right there. Those are some tough pitchers. Especially if you make the playoffs. I mean, that's a 1-2-3 punch. That's going to be tough to beat. If they're on their game. Now Kluber, he can have his ups and downs, but the guy's such a pro. I mean, there was rumors of the Reds trying to get him, which I thought would have been great, but I mean that's a tough 1-3 punch right there. So I would have to lean towards the Indians. I
agree with that pitching staff. That's Bauer and Kluber. My goodness, and Bauer talk about a character, huh?
He's fun, isn't he?
That article came out, and he's just like, all right. He put it out there. This is how it is.
He's the Gronk of the baseball world.
Exactly. Who I'm gonna miss Gronk, man.
Shut your mouth. Shut it right now.
I will, man. I won't bring up the Patriots 6 rings, but anyway.
It was a fumble. I just want to get that off my chest. It was a fumble.
So my predictions for the American League, I'm gonna, as bad as it hurts, man. I think the Yankees are gonna bounce back and win the East. I think offensively, they might set a record again for home runs. I know they set a record last year. Judge and Stanton, if they're healthy, man, those guys might hit 100 to 110 home runs together. And then you put Sanchez in there, and like there's no holes, There's no easy spot in that lineup. Pitching wise, I think they're going to be pretty good. There's just not one easy out. There's not one guy starting for them. You're like, okay, we can go in there and rough this guy up. They're just they got the pieces. But I think the Red Sox and them are going to battle to the end. The Red Sox they didn't lose anybody. They're going to be really, really good as well. The Central.
Sorry, not to butt in.
No.
The one thing the Yankees have going for them is that the Red Sox have that huge chip on their shoulder. So I could definitely see the Yankees making a huge run, because the Red Sox have, like I said, one of the greatest seasons ever. So I mean, how can you go any better than that? So I could see the Yankees making a big push for sure. So yeah. I mean, that's not crazy to think, and a lot of experts are picking the Yankees too. I just think for every home run that they hit, they also strike out a crap ton. So Tony Gwynn's spinning in his grave right now.
Dude, the strikeouts. I talk to Dad all the time, and the strikeouts are just. It's embarrassing. Bunt. I mean, with all these shifts now and these 4-man outfields, and it's like, dude, you realize they're giving you a hit. Like Anthony Rizzo, like I love Rizzo, but they're giving him a hit every at bat. They're giving Schwarber a hit every at bat. They're giving Harper a hit every at bat. You just bunt. You bunt down the line. Like
there's guys now, if they did that, they might hit 400. I mean, right. I hate to say it. There's a possibility you could hit 400.
I agree, man. It's yeah, you're getting paid to drive in runs. You're getting paid to hit home runs. Boy, you're getting paid to win. Like, we brought you in here because we want to win. It'd be nice if you hit 50 home runs and knocked in 150, but how about we win?
Ask him if the MVP trophy feels better than a World Series trophy, and then we'll see what the results are.
Right. You know what? I would like to hear actual answers from people on that question, because there's some selfish guys out there that's like,
right.
if I'm being honest, this was on me.
MVP trophy, hands down, without question.
I agree. That just makes me so sad, man. I mean, that's why we're
not to get off topic from your thing. The guy's got some nuts. I mean, they might be small now because of the roids, but
right, they're not producing any testosterone now. But
he was right. After all these years, he was right.
He's kind of a caricature of himself, and even back in the day when I was a kid, I knew he had a stigma about him. This is the bad boy. This guy's doing 100 in his Lamborghini down the freeway. He's getting in trouble with a gun. He's this and that. But man, when he came out and started talking about McGuire and Pudge and all these guys, Palmeiro, I know Pudge never tested positive or anything like that, but if you ask me,
he was still linked in some way.
Exactly. Those guys that were all named in his book, man, none of them sued him. None of them came out and defamation suits or anything like that against him. It's like he was right, and I feel he's kind of paranoid, Canseco. But do I feel he was blackballed there toward the end of his career? I kind of do a little bit. Teams didn't want to touch him because they knew he would rat guys out. You know what I mean? Even though
I think it goes back to the whole, kind of the Pete Rose thing where he's the black eye of baseball, but at the same time, he's the good thing for baseball. He's vindicated. He like you said, he's never once sued. Nobody came out in the public and said, hey, he was right. So, I mean, it's kind of like when the bad guy wins in the movies. It's kind of like the same deal. It's hard to call the guy the bad guy when you're right. But
right. I follow Canseco.
So fun to watch. He was just so fun to watch.
Oh, he was so fun to watch, man. Me and Mom and Dad went to Vegas to watch him in the Home Run Derby back in 2001, and it was him and Bonds and Piazza and talk about a steroid guy, Luis Gonzalez. All these different guys in this Derby, but Canseco ended up finishing second to Palmeiro. How ironic that is, but
very ironic.
These guys were just hitting bombs, man. Watching them play, but now following Canseco in the media and on Twitter and. The dude is so hard up for money. He's always challenging people to fights. He's offering like ghost hunts. Come hunt ghosts with me. It's like, dude, I'm embarrassed for him. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't know, man. It's
he's like he went from MVP, the best player in the world of baseball, to doing ghost hunts. I mean, that says it all right there, right?
1988, he was the man. But coming to the AL Central, I was gonna say the Indians, but man, they have some pretty big injuries with Lindor being out. He tweaked his ankle again while he's rehabbing for his calf. I know they got Ramirez, who might not be ready for opening day. They got a couple people. Danny Salazar's injured right now. They got some people
Salazar,
that are
seems like he's always hurt, doesn't it? I mean, Salazar's one of those guys who got some of the best stuff in baseball, but can never stay healthy.
Right. So I don't know how they'll be. I mean, offensively, I think, again, pitching's going to keep them in every game because they got those solid three. But offensively, I don't know. With losing Encarnacion, they lost a couple guys that were really, key parts of that.
I think Kipnis is hurt too.
Kipnis is hurt. He's out for a while. So I think the Yankees win the East. I think the Indians – I still think the Indians probably win the Central. I think Houston wins the West. I think the West just goes to Houston. They're just they just have too many pieces. The pitching's there. They play in that tiny ballpark where their guys are kind of molded for. Bregman's amazing. I think Bregman's the best player on that team right now. I think he's overtaken Altuve. I think Correa has to stay healthy. He's hurt again. They said he might not be ready for opening day. He's one of those kids, too, that seems to be like, man, is he going to be hurt all the time? He was hurt last year. if he puts together a full season, that guy's a 35 homer, 110 RBI,
It's
maybe
scary
20
what these guys can do if they stay healthy, man. Like I agree with you 100%.
They got to stay healthy for sure. Well, man, I appreciate the talk on the baseball season. I know I'm looking forward to sitting here.
Excited, dude.
I know Dad just told me he ordered the MLB package, so I'll get to watch the games tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Which beats today, because today, before I talked to you, I was actually sitting here watching Police Women of Broward County.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Settle
so
down.
I watched about 6 episodes of that. So that's how good television.
I want to also get it on record that I never once screwed up Gabe Cash or Ray Tango.
This will be edited from the podcast. I continually hate myself for that. I actually pray every night to ask forgiveness for switching those two up. But
it's funny. I'll be flipping through like you Sling or whatever, and I'll see it on there. And every single time I think of you just sitting there, I'm sorry. I mean, dude, it brings me to tears. It's one of the greatest memories I have.
That's so funny, man. That was back when I was in Palm Desert. So that was 2015.
It's been a minute.
It's been a few years ago. So, man, it was good to do the first podcast with you talking about baseball. I want to do some more and get you on here for some movies and music and football and college football and all that kind of stuff too. But I kind of want to end the podcast with just a few questions.
Sure.
I'll shoot a few questions to you. You answer them with the first thing that comes to mind. They can be short answers. They can be long answers, whatever you want to give, okay?
Let's do it.
All right, man. So first question, where's your favorite place to be?
Favorite place to be? Home. 110%.
Okay. So take your kid out of that. Take your kid and Bailey out of the situation. Anything, where else? Sporting event, concert, just riding around. Where's your other favorite, another favorite place to be?
Wow, that's tough. I would say man, I don't know. I guess if you put a gun to my head, probably a Reds game.
Yeah.
Okay. If I lived in the vicinity and I had the time, and I would be a season ticket holder, I would be right there every game.
For sure. Me too, man. Me too. Okay, number 2, favorite album of all time.
Favorite album of all time? Wow, that's tough. It's funny you asked that because I'm actually in a group text with a bunch of guys from work and we're talking about that.
Yeah.
If you're twisting my arm and you say you have to listen to something for the rest of your life, probably the original Van Halen.
Okay.
But right now, I would say Rush, Moving Pictures.
Okay. Remind me to tell you a story about Sammy Hagar. He has a restaurant here in the Kahului Airport, and one of my friends used to work at the airport when he came in. You have to remind me to tell you a not so nice story on Sammy Hagar.
I can only imagine.
Next, let's see. Did Oswald kill Kennedy?
I believe he was a part of it, but he didn't. He didn't act alone.
Okay. Best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I ever received? Probably my old man. He said life is hard.
Very nice, man. That's the truth.
He was not lying.
No. And that, I tell you what, man, that was a good dude right there. He's definitely missed by all of us. I miss
Yep.
I miss seeing old Russ down at the ball fields and that curly mop of his.
And the chew. Don't forget the chew.
Exactly, right. All right, man. And the last question for you. Best memory of us growing up.
Oh man, it's gotta be playing basketball in your backyard or your dad come and pick me up in the brown Ford and going over to the ball field. And him making that one-handed catch, I thought that was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, you always talk about
that.
You always talk about that Kevin Mitchell catch, right?
Over the head, one-handed. It was amazing. I was just like shock and awe. But I really looked up to you guys because I was younger than you, obviously, and just to be a part of that, I was in heaven. I was in literally baseball heaven. So for your dad to come and get me and be a part of that, I thought that was fantastic. That was
absolutely, dude. You were definitely part of the group. You were part of that neighborhood, and it was always fun to have you around.
A little bit smaller than you guys.
A little bit. You were a little bit smaller back then, but it was still, you were still part of us.
Man, it was a lot of fun. I still remember that little plastic glove I had. It was good times, man.
That was fun times, man, for sure. All right, dude. Well, anything for me? You got anything? Any questions? Anything else you want to talk about?
Let's hear it back at you. Let's hear your favorite album.
Oh man,
my favorite. Bone Thugs. I'm ending it right now.
I think if I said Bone Thugs, my computer would lose internet connection immediately. I'm not gonna lie though. I still like Bone Thugs, but man, my favorite album of all time, pretty much any one of Billy Joel's albums.
There you go.
Billy's my favorite artist of all time. So anytime I can throw on, I really like Cold Spring Harbor, his first album. A lot of people haven't heard that one, but I really like it. Yeah. I also like Ropin' the Wind, Garth Brooks. So those are probably my two. Yeah, those are probably my two favorite albums of all time.
How about, okay, here's one for you. Was Bonds a Hall of Famer before he took the roids?
Oh, man, see, it's always hard to distinguish, like, because there's that stigma of he did it. You know what I mean? It's because to me, it's still like, is OJ one of the greatest running backs of all time? I'm like, well, he's a murderer. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's hard to distinguish, but watching Bonds in the early 90s, even, I still remember some stuff from the late 80s, but late 80s, early 90s, man, he was amazing. Like, he had a chip on his shoulder, but man, that kid could play ball. He was a fantastic player, but it's just so hard to overlook the stuff that happened late in his career and the way he addressed the media and just his smugness of getting away with this. And I remember how happy, and this is kind of sad to say, I remember how happy I was when he broke McGuire's record for home runs in a season because McGuire overshadowed Canseco, because I was a huge Canseco fan, and I knew Canseco cheated, but I knew McGuire cheated. But McGuire was getting all this praise, and nobody was talking about him. Well, then I was like, well, screw McGuire. I want somebody to beat him. So when Bonds beat him, I was super happy. But looking back now, I'm just like, that was sad.
What's the worst possible player that can break that record? Oh, Barry Bonds. It's like, it literally could have been anybody else, but it had to be anybody else.
So I'm hoping if it happens again, which I don't think it ever will. I mean, you've noticed as the roids have worked their way out of the game a little bit more, I still think they're in there, but as those have kind of tapered down a little, you don't see those guys hitting 65, 60, 55 runs. So I don't think that'll ever happen again. But
it's going to take a long time for another 60 home run season, I think.
But that was a long-winded answer to say Bonds was a Hall of Famer before the roids, but I would never vote him in now because of what else he did. Same with Clemens.
That's a solid answer.
Yeah.
Solid answer. My last question would be, what is your favorite place? I mean, you take your job out of the equation, take Hawaii out of the equation. Somebody's got a gun to your head. Where do you want to be?
I love being in Michigan Stadium. I love being in Ann Arbor. I love that city. I love everything about that. You've been there with
cheese, right?
Yeah, the Zingermans, man. Everything about that. You've been there with me before, and regardless of your preference on teams of whatever, you got to admit that's a pretty special atmosphere. Say that again.
Who do I like again?
I think we're losing internet connection again, man. but that's probably my favorite, my favorite spot to be. And as cheesy as this sounds, hanging out with my folks, you know how tight we are. So being with them, hanging out, doing that kind of thing.
As much praise as you have for my dad, I cannot say enough about your parents. They're just top-notch people, man. Just truly.
Well, I appreciate that. They think a lot of you. They think a lot of you. They always ask, "You talk to Andy lately? You talk to Andy lately?" I'm like, "Yeah, I talk to Andy pretty much on a weekly basis." And you've been my go-to here in Hawaii, man. And I really appreciate that. There's been times where
you can talk to me anytime. Don't worry. No worries.
There's been times it's been kind of challenging being here, needing to talk to somebody and not really having anybody around.
I want to go ahead and apologize if I don't respond to you right away. It's because I'm being a dad. It's kind of hard sometimes.
That's number one, dude. That's number one job. You do that first. But I appreciate you always getting back with me, and it's always fun to talk with you, man. I'm glad the season's starting, so we have even more to talk about. I'm sick of that, late November talk where we always have to talk about Ohio State beating Michigan. I got to get over that, and now we can get on to some.
I'm just glad you said it and not me.
Well, hey, how about Michigan basketball though, huh? I got a chance to go.
They were solid last year, so I'm rooting for them. I'm not into the whole Michigan Ohio State rivalry. I root for the Big Ten. I root for good teams. I mean, I want Michigan to succeed. That way, when we beat them, it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? So
you said when we beat them. It's
inevitable.
I agree.
But I'm just not into the whole. I mean, people are so ridiculous around here. I live in Columbus, essentially, and it's ridiculous. It really is. I mean, it works both ways. I'm sure you'll find some douchebag in Ann Arbor that's the same way. But
100%.
I'll never understand it. I'll never get it. I'm a fan of college football. Why would you not want to go to Michigan State? I mean, it's great.
Right. That's why we can talk. That's why we can have civil conversations, because we can agree that we can argue but agree at the same time. You know what I mean? And sometimes you get those fans or those other people who you just can't. It's all the same.
No.
It's excuses for their guys and we're here and I don't know, man.
The past interference that never happened, that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, man, I hope to see you pretty soon. I'll be home hopefully mid-April. I was hoping to get this podcast out before the baseball season started. Obviously, again, with the technical difficulties of my internet connection.
You have less than 24 hours, sir.
I know, right? So it'll be out probably. There'll be a few games under their belts, but it's been fun talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you pretty soon, man.
Get a hold of me, buddy. As soon as you get in town, get a hold of me, all right?
I will tell Bailey, hey, and give Aubrey a hug for me.
Hear that, I'm going to give you a hug.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Adios.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the very first episode of my new podcast. I want to thank my good friend Andy Parsons for being a part of the first show. Feel free to reach out to me and let me know what you thought of the show. Brent Ewing on Facebook or at Brent33 on Twitter. I'd love to hear some feedback, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon.